Good day, students. Welcome to JSS 2 Basic Science, Week 2. Today we study the respiratory system, the organ system responsible for breathing and gas exchange. Breathing, ventilation, and respiration are two different processes that are often confused. Breathing is the mechanical process of moving air in and out of the lungs. Respiration is the chemical process that happens inside cells, releasing energy from glucose using oxygen. Today we focus on the breathing mechanism, how air enters and exits the lungs, and the structures that make this possible. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to list and describe the structures of the human respiratory system, explain the mechanics of inhalation and exhalation, distinguish between breathing and respiration, describe how gas exchange occurs in the lungs, and list factors that affect breathing rate. Let us breathe easy and learn. The respiratory system consists of the air passages, upper and lower, and the lungs. Upper respiratory tract, nose/mouth, entry points for air, nose hairs and mucous membrane filter, warm and moisten air, nasal cavity, further filtration and humidification, pharynx, throat, shared passage for air and food, the epiglottis, a flap of tissue, closes the trachea during swallowing to prevent food from entering, larynx, voice box, contains the vocal cords, produces sound during breathing when air passes over them. Lower respiratory tract, trachea, windpipe, a rigid tube strengthened by C-shaped rings of cartilage, prevents collapse, lined with cilia and mucus to trap and expel dust and pathogens. Bronchi, singular, bronchus, the trachea divides into two bronchi, one entering each lung, bronchioles, progressively smaller branches within each lung, alveoli, singular, alveoles, tiny air sacs at the end of the bronchioles, site of gas exchange. There are approximately 700 million alveoli in the human lungs, providing an enormous surface area, about 70 square meters. Lungs, two large, spongy organs in the thoracic, chest, cavity. The right lung has 3 lobes, the left lung has 2 lobes, to accommodate the heart. Both lungs are enclosed in a double membrane called the pleura. The thoracic cavity is bounded by the rib cage, above, sides, and the diaphragm, below. Section 1. Mechanism of breathing. Breathing depends on changes in the volume and therefore pressure of the thoracic cavity. Boyle's law applies: when volume increases, pressure decreases; when volume decreases, pressure increases. The lungs follow the thoracic cavity because they are enclosed in the pleural membranes. Inhalation, breathing in. The diaphragm, dome-shaped muscle below the lungs, contracts and flattens, moves downward. The external intercostal muscles, between the ribs, contract, pulling the ribs upward and outward. Both actions increase the volume of the thoracic cavity. This decreases the air pressure inside the lungs below atmospheric pressure. Air rushes iron through the nose/mouth, down the trachea, and into the lungs to equalize the pressure. Exhalation, breathing out, normal, passive. The diaphragm relaxes and returns to its dome shape, moves upward. The external intercostal muscles relax, and ribs move downward and inward. The volume of the thoracic cavity decreases. This increases the pressure inside the lungs above atmospheric pressure. Air is pushed out of the lungs. Forced exhalation, e.g., coughing, blowing, the internal intercostal muscles contract to pull ribs further down, and the abdominal muscles contract to push the diaphragm further up, forcing more air out. Section 2. Gas exchange in the alveoli. The alveoli are specially adapted for efficient gas exchange. Enormous surface area, millions of alveoli, very thin walls, 1 cell thick, short diffusion distance, moist inner lining. Gases dissolve in moisture before diffusing. Rich blood supply. Each alveolus is surrounded by a dense network of capillaries. Diffusion. Gas exchange occurs by diffusion. Molecules move from regions of high concentration to regions of low concentration. Oxygen. High concentration in alveolar air, low concentration in blood. Oxygen diffuses into the blood, binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells, transported to body cells. Carbon dioxide. High concentration in blood, from cell respiration, low concentration in alveolar air. Carbon dioxide diffuses out of blood into alveolar air. Exhaled. Composition changes: inhaled air, 21% O2, 0.04% CO2, 78% N2. Exhaled air, 16% O2, 4% CO2, 78% N2, more water vapor. Nitrogen is unchanged, not used by the body. Section 3, breathing rate. Normal breathing rate at rest, 15 to 20 breaths per minute. This can increase to 60 to 80 breaths per minute during vigorous exercise. Factors that increase breathing rate: exercise, increased CO2 production, fever, high altitude, less oxygen, emotional stress. The brain, medulla oblongata, controls breathing rate automatically, responding to the level of CO2 in the blood, not oxygen. When CO2 rises, the brain signals faster, deeper breathing. Section 4, diseases of the respiratory system. Asthma, narrowing and inflammation of the bronchioles, causing wheezing and difficulty breathing. Common in Nigeria, triggered by dust, smoke, allergens. Treated with inhalers, bronchodilators. Tuberculosis, TB bacterial infection, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, of the lungs, spread by droplet infection, major public health issue in Nigeria. Treated with antibiotics, DOTS program. Pneumonia, bacterial or viral infection causing inflammation of the alveoli, which fill with fluid, breathing becomes difficult. Bronchitis, inflammation of the bronchi, often caused by smoking or air pollution in Nigerian cities, Lagos, Kano. Comparison: inhalation versus exhalation. Inhalation, diaphragm contracts and flattens. Ribs move up and out. Thoracic volume increases. Lung pressure decreases. Air moves in. Exhalation, diaphragm relaxes and domes. Ribs move down and in. Thoracic volume decreases. Lung pressure increases. Air moves out. Examination question: explain why the composition of exhaled air differs from inhaled air. Answer: exhaled air has less oxygen, from 21% to 16%, because oxygen has been absorbed into the blood in the alveoli for use in cellular respiration. Exhaled air has more carbon dioxide, from 0.04% to 4%, because carbon dioxide produced during cellular respiration in body cells has diffused from the blood into the alveoli and been expelled. Exhaled air also contains more water vapor due to evaporation from the moist lining of the lungs and airways. For respiratory system errors. Mistake 1. Confusing breathing and respiration. Breathing is the mechanical movement of air in and out of the lungs. Respiration is the chemical reaction in cells that releases energy from glucose using oxygen. Mistake 2. Saying the diaphragm relaxes during inhalation. The opposite is true. The diaphragm contracts, flattens, during inhalation. It relaxes, domes, during exhalation. Mistake 3. Saying nitrogen is used during breathing. Nitrogen makes up 78% of both inhaled and exhaled air and is not used by the body. Only oxygen and carbon dioxide change in percentage. Mistake 4. Thinking the lungs actively pump air. The lungs are passive. It is the diaphragm and intercostal muscles that create the pressure difference. The lungs simply expand and contract with the thoracic cavity. Excellent work. The respiratory system consists of nose/mouth, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli. Inhalation, diaphragm contracts, flattens, ribs move up and out, volume increases, pressure drops, air moves in. Exhalation, diaphragm relaxes, domes, ribs move down and in, volume decreases, pressure rises, air moves out. Gas exchange occurs in the alveoli by diffusion. O2 diffuses into blood, CO2 diffuses out. Inhaled, 21% O2, 0.04% CO2. Exhaled, 16% O2, 4% CO2. Alveolar adaptations: large surface area, thin walls, moist lining, rich capillary supply. The medulla oblongata controls breathing rate based on blood CO2 levels. For homework, Draw a labeled diagram of the respiratory system and describe what happens to the diaphragm and ribs during inhalation and exhalation.